Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're all doing well. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a closer look at a brand new French brand. This brand is called Sora Dora, and we're going to be taking a closer look at one of their fragrances, which happens to be called Gladiator. This is an interesting composition, and this is a fragrance that kind of reminds me of Creed's Aventus, but perhaps done in a stronger way. I'm excited to give you my in-detail thoughts on this fragrance, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I begin today's review on Gladiator by Sora Dora, and I tell you all about this fragrance, what I get from it in terms of the notes, the longevity, the performance, the complement factor, all that good stuff, I do want to start things off by mentioning that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit that bell icon so you can be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel. And of course, make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you learned something today or if you take something of value from today's episode. Now, this brand actually has a bunch of fragrances. They all came out at once. And here we have a fragrance called Gladiator, which has a lot of familiar elements to it that kind of remind me of Creed's Aventus. And of course, I say this because there's pineapple, there's apple, there's cedarwood, there are some white flowers in the heart. So there are a lot of pieces that you would find in the original Creed Aventus, but this is actually done in a different way, where the more I wore it and the more time I spent with it, I realized it actually does its own thing, but in many ways it's actually stronger than Creed's Aventus, which leads me to say that this is kind of like an Aventus extrait or like an Aventus intense or something along those lines. In addition to all of the notes that you'd find in Creed Aventus, or I should say most of the notes you'd find in Creed Aventus, you're also going to get bitter orange, you're going to get grapefruit, and you're going to get this note of mint. So it's like a more zesty, brighter, mintier version of Creed Aventus, while also having a lot of these enduring qualities in the base that give it really good longevity. So I'm excited to tell you what my findings were from my several weeks of wearing this fragrance, but let's go ahead and start things off with the presentation. Wow, so the opening of this fragrance is very bright and very zesty. Now, I know I made a few comparisons to Creed Aventus throughout the course of this video already. One thing that I want to mention is that I've been wearing Creed Aventus since like 2011, something like that. So I've been wearing Creed Aventus for well over a decade. I wore it on my wedding day. I have a lot of fond memories associated to that fragrance. And when I smell a fragrance that comes even remotely close to it, I can usually detect, oh, okay, this is inspired in a way by Creed Aventus. There's 100% something Aventus-y happening in this fragrance, but it still manages to do things in its own way. So let me explain. The apple that is in here is actually much more juicy than the one that you would find in Creed Aventus. Creed Aventus, there's more of an emphasis on smoke. In this fragrance, I'm not really getting a whole lot of smoke. I am getting some woods in the base once you give this fragrance like a couple hours to settle in on your skin, but I'm not necessarily getting anything smoky. So I'm not getting a whole lot of birch per se, but I am getting this overly ripe pineapple and apple combination that is really flavorful. And I think the brightness in the opening is on account of not just those ingredients, but grapefruit as well. The grapefruit is almost adding like this tangy sensation that you don't get in Creed Aventus. So it's very bright, very juicy and enigmatic, and it has this flavorful profile in the opening that I haven't quite smelled before. And at one point I was like, wait, is this supposed to be like a Sauvage by Dior-like introduction? Because it actually has this very bright nature to it, but it does things in a very unique and original way, which is something that I appreciate very much. I always love smelling fragrances that I haven't smelled before, right? If it's a familiar DNA, I tend to get tuned out very quickly or I get bored easily, but that's not happening here because there's something quirky that kind of does things in its own way. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the mint note. Now, there isn't a whole lot of mint. It's not, you know, the star of the show. It doesn't spotlight the ingredient per se, but it weaves itself into the composition very organically to add that special extra little touch that I think amplifies and adds even a further layer of brightness to the already bright bergamot, grapefruit, bitter orange, apple, and pineapple. So all of these fruity notes that you're going to get in the opening are even further accented and sort of heightened in their aroma through the use of that note of mint, which I think it does something really, really special here. Now, the base is where you might get a little bit closer to Creed Aventus, but again, it easily takes a couple of hours for you to get into that sort of more identifiable Creed Aventus territory. In the opening, it's really unique. It does its own thing. It has this Aventus inspiration about it, but once it starts to dry down, that's when the similarities become a little bit more apparent. So honestly, this is similar to Aventus in a way, but it does its own thing in the sense that it's brighter. It has the mint note. It has a more well-rounded citrus vibe. It lacks that smoky touch from Creed Aventus that I think a lot of people really like. It kind of adds this contemporary, masculine, and enigmatic feel, but this is like a juicier, fresher Aventus without going the Aventus cologne route. So this is what, in my opinion, could be like an Aventus Extrait or an Aventus Intense or something along those lines. And so, you know, especially when you're comparing it to recent batches, I know the comparisons can tend to become a little bit difficult given the fact that, you know, with the original batches from 2011, 2010, the 1101, the XO2, those were like the really smoky variations of the fragrance, but I digress. If you have a chance to purchase a sample pack at the very least, there is so much, you know, to discover in this line. A lot of great fragrances. This one, Camel Oud, is also a really interesting one. I plan to review as many as I can down the line because there is a lot of newness that I really enjoy, and I'm excited to share it with my subscribers. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, this is half unique. And I say that because it's more unique in the opening than it is in the dry down. Like I said, it's like a brighter, zestier, fruitier, more ripe version of Creed Aventus. But once it starts to dry down, you do get the woods and the clean florals and the musk and, you know, a lot of these other ingredients that you would find in Creed Aventus. And so it is unique, but not for the entire duration of the fragrance. Longevity on this fragrance, you can expect about 9 to 10 hours on your skin. This stuff lingers. It does stick around for a long time, which is impressive. In terms of the projection, great for the first hour and a half to 2 hours of application. It didn't even start to sit closer to the skin until that 7-hour mark. Versatility, it leans a little bit masculine, but all seasons, all occasions, all ages. And I would say the same thing about Creed Aventus. In terms of the presentation, this fragrance is really nice. A final verdict on this fragrance is if you are looking for something that has a similar Aventus DNA, but something that goes in its own direction and something that does things with a certain level of uniqueness while adding a certain level of zest and brightness, that is really nice for this time of the year now that things are starting to get warm, I would definitely recommend that you check out Gladiator by Sora Dora, a brand new fragrance for 2022 by a brand new French brand. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider showing your support by leaving a comment down below, hitting the subscribe button, hit the bell so you can be notified on future releases, and give this video a thumbs up if you learned something today. Thank you so much for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.